Well, the haters gonna hate, and the faker's gonna fake, baby. I'm just gonna making luck, a Dominion podcast.
That's amazing. We believe you, Lexi.
Well, I mean, I do, and now you're the second person in the universe that believes her.
Which actually brings us to the raffle.
Welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast.
Yeah, so if you were listening to any of that, then you maybe have an idea of what the raffle prize is.
Stick around at the end of the show. It'll probably be the Easter egg.
Yeah, right. So it's going to be a mystery box, basically.
God.
The winner of the raffle is going to get a box, and it's going to have a surprise in it.
Wow.
And if you stick around to the end of the episode, you're going to have a hint
I think I
as
know
to what that is.
Oh, man.
So again, as Adam said, welcome to Making Luck. It's a Dominion and hunting podcast. It's
Whoa,
a hybrid.
hunting. Wow,
Yeah.
Another hint right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this episode, it's going to be slightly different. Basically because we're recording this on a Saturday instead of a Monday, and you're probably going to be seeing this a little earlier than the normal Tuesday night upload. That's because I'm going to be out of town. We're leaving basically after I'm done editing and uploading this podcast, and I'm going to be gone till Wednesday, so I'm just going to upload the thing and you can enjoy it. However, I need to be able to not take a lot of time editing this. So the quality, particularly of the video, may drop a little bit because I'm only going to do one pass, and if I miss a card image, whoops, sorry, I don't have the time to do a second pass. And also, this will be a little bit shorter of an episode.
Yeah, sure. Definitely, as such, we're picking a topic that isn't, of course, something that there isn't anything to say about, or we wouldn't be doing an episode on it. But a little bit shorter of one, definitely.
Yeah, like we've combined cards in the past, like the whole farmland hunting grounds, and so it's basically just one of those, I think.
Yeah. So the one we chose this time is actually the event called Trade.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably my favorite event for reasons that have very little to do with Dominion gameplay.
Okay. What's your favorite part of Trade?
Oh, I'll get to it when we talk about the card itself, but first I thought we would address this kingdom.
Yeah, so over the last week we talked about, we played out this kingdom. Last episode was on the dynamic between trashing and junking, like which one do you go for first when you have both available. So we played this kingdom out a little bit to find out.
Yeah. Do you want to read the cards?
Sure. So the kingdom in question has Fool's Gold, Moat, Catapult, Exorcist, Marauder, Mining Village, Quarry, Count, Crypt, and Nobles. We have the event called Tower as well.
Landmark.
The landmark event, whatever.
The landmark event.
So, once more for our audio-only listeners, the kingdom we played last week was Fool's Gold, Moat, Catapult, Exorcist, Marauder, Mining Village, Quarry, Count, Crypt, Nobles, and the Landmark Tower.
The landmark event tower.
The Landmark Event Tower.
Yeah.
So
I think last time I advocated for an Exorcist Catapult opening.
Yes.
Into rushing the Fool's Golds and like maybe getting a Nobles someday.
Yeah, and I had talked about Exorcist Catapult being pretty good, but maybe thinking about opening with a Marauder as well. And my thinking initially was that Fool's Gold wasn't worth it because there wasn't plus buy. And normally Fool's Gold is a card that I only go for if there is plus buy because, one, you want to get multiple Fool's Golds a turn. Two, you want to capitalize on those high price points that Fool's Golds are spiking in a way that's more than what, silvers and golds could. I was super wrong. Fool's Gold big money, even without plus buy, destroys regular big money here.
Yeah, also, you've overlooked the fact that there is plus buy on this board.
Okay,
Ruin market!
Okay,
We did it, guys!
That's something
We
to
did
get
it.
into. But the other thing, so the Marauder turned out to be pretty bad, unfortunately, too. Adam and I both actually experimented with buying it in the middle or the beginning or the end to disrupt an opponent. Yeah, like ever. And there just wasn't a good opportunity. Like, even in the best situation for Marauder, when, like, the opponent's going for Fool's Gold and you get it early and you disrupt them with junk and you don't care about getting Fool's Golds too much, it's still kind of bad. The junk doesn't actually do a whole lot to them. Like,
yeah, because you're getting things that are not called Fool's Gold, and if you let your opponent get too many Fool's Golds, like the junk just doesn't matter.
because they have all the fool's golds. And, like,
in fact, the junk actually can help.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't see. I didn't see it coming. I lost a game because Wandering Winder started buying ruins to get the tower points. Oh yeah, it happened.
Oh,
it happened.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean he got a Marauder too, to empty the pile, but like he bought ruins, and I had it happened. It happened.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it happened.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that. But
yeah.
So the other thing about the junking here is that the trashing is actually better than it looks. I know, like, you see, like, these cards only trash one card a turn, whatever, but, like, remember that Exorcist being a night card means it's non-terminal, and as we had discussed earlier, a trasher or a junker being non-terminal makes it immediately better at doing that.
For sure. I mean, Marauder costs you an action to give out the junk, and Exorcist does not cost the action to get it out.
And Catapult costs an action but gives you a benefit and possibly attacks your opponent.
Yeah, the attack it turns out, pretty significant in some cases.
Yeah.
But also, Exorcist also has the benefits, right? If you trash an estate, you're getting a Will-O-Wisp, which is super great for the deck.
Yeah.
And you also can just draw it with a Nobles and be perfectly happy with your life.
Yeah.
So these are all considerations. I think, I had at least predicted, and I think you were sort of waffling on it, but the trashing here outclasses the junking.
Yeah.
And that has to do with basically the junkers at the $4 or less price point. Marauder just isn't good at doing the junking.
And just because the trashing, quote-unquote, wins against the junking on a board doesn't mean you don't go for the junking at all, usually.
That's very true. In this case it did, but not always. Yeah.
In this case, it outclassed it by so much that the junking wasn't worth it. But, like, sometimes what I was saying is that the junking could slow your opponent down enough to be worth it. But, like, honestly, it just didn't here, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. The Count was interesting, too. Normally, Count is such a prolific trasher at thinning so much that you go for it, but I don't think it actually was important unless you opened with it. If you got it on a 5-2, I think it's pretty good.
It's really good unless your opponent hits your count hand with a catapult.
Oh, God. Yeah,
also,
that sucks.
So based on games I played with Wandering Winder, which you haven't seen, he just opened Fool's Gold turn 1, and he won a lot of those games. And it's because right afterward, he could get the count. And if you win that Fool's Gold split, if you get 6 Fool's Golds, Count suddenly becomes a very, very good card in your deck. Not just because it can trash, but number 1, it helps you line up your Fool's Golds. Number 2, it does give you trashing option, but, it's kind of like a Fool's Gold in itself, because, that plus 2 Fool's Gold is a province hand.
Okay.
So just getting 2 provinces is great. It also gives you options for, like, I get 4 provinces, and now I have this other win condition of just spamming duchies.
Yeah, so that's a thing, too.
I think Count can be good in the deck. It's not something that I always found myself picking up.
Right.
But situationally, there are places where you want it.
There were 2, like, really good openers I saw, and they were things that I was waffling between. They both involved opening with an Exorcist, but then I was torn, and I'm assuming a Fool's Gold Mirror here. Like, because I think we decided that's the best strategy.
If you don't, like, just blitz Fool's Gold super fast, you're going to lose the game.
Probably, yeah.
And definitely. Unless bot, but yeah.
So, I was thinking Catapult Exorcist was pretty good because the Catapult trashes the Cobbers for a benefit, the Exorcist trashes the Estates for a benefit. Both of those things are great for a Fool's Gold deck. Yeah. But also, like, if you're being mirrored, Exorcist Fool's Gold is super valid too, because it's super nice to win that Fool's Gold split, and the best way to win a split a lot of the time is to just start buying the cards, so...
Yeah, I think unless you see your opponent open with a Marauder, like, Exorcist Fool's Gold might end up being the best opening.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm leaning towards strongly. There's one other thing that I wanted to address here. I don't want to get too far into it because I feel like our next episode is going to hit this one pretty hard.
Okay.
But we got a lot of feedback from some very good Dominion players who looked at the board and they say, Exorcist and Catapult are great to open with, which, it's very close to being best, if not the best. I'm still like not 100% convinced. But anyway,
it's hard. It might come down to whether or not you went first. But go ahead.
Right, first player has a lot to do with it. In any case,
first player really likes a Catapult. Yeah.
First player is really good on a Fool's Gold board.
Yeah. First player is really good on a Son of Anto board too.
First player is really good on a lot of boards.
First player is really good to be. But yeah, go ahead.
Pretty good. I wonder what that's like. But anyway, After that, the commentary was, you build an engine. And, of course, I was like, hey, what's an engine? And they said, you get some mining
what
villages.
an engine is. Yeah, but go ahead.
No, but like, I didn't understand what that meant here, because I didn't understand why you would play a deck that wasn't very close to big money.
Sure.
And so I needed more detail. Hashtag and the E word. Hashtag the E word. But, you get mining villages and nobles. You get a quarry to help you buy this stuff. And that, the quarry is almost only good when you have that ruin market, although it can be tough to buy nobles without it, so I understand it. And then you go for provinces from there, right? And if you're gonna do that, if you don't have any plus buy, that's just gonna die to Fool's Gold big money. I played a lot of games that way. It's performs very poorly there. Even if Ruin Market is on top of the pile, or even if you magically have it, because of a Marauder or something, like, Ruin Market is still not a great card for the deck. I really, really, really tried to make that deck work, and it doesn't. Like, it loses to Fool's Gold, because either you contest the Fool's Gold properly, in which case you're really pivoting hard to go for this kind of a deck.
Yeah.
Or you don't contest the Fool's Golds, and you've lost the game because you didn't contest the Fool's Golds. And I think, these decks that have a lot of deck control are great, and increasing your payload is also a great thing you can do. However, that was not the case here. There were a lot of indicators that suggested that, and even then, I misread boards on this podcast.
Sure.
Pretty desperately, and that can still happen.
I make a habit of it.
Yeah.
But
we all have to do what we're best at.
Yeah, right.
And both of us are good at doing that. But anyway, the particular issue that plagued us here, I think we may be able to touch on in the next episode.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's just kind of being afraid of treasures in general, and always tending to build these decks that have high deck control if the resources are available, or sometimes even if the resources aren't available.
Yeah, definitely. I have some things to say about that, certainly. I know Adam does as well, so that'll be our next episode.
Wandering Winter might have a few things to say, too.
Yeah? Sometimes I can still hear his voice.
Yeah. Hebra. We tried to make Crypt work. It didn't.
Yeah, I think I advocated for Crypt on the last episode.
I did, too.
Yeah, because I thought it would help you line up Fool's Golds, and that's great.
Turns
There's no
out
time for it.
Nobles is just better, Count is just better.
Yeah.
If you hit 5, you probably just would rather put the Count in the deck. So, I'm not going to say it doesn't have synergy with the Fool's Gold, but it's certainly on this board never worked out to pick up.
Yeah.
Moat was bought sometimes, but only after the Fool's Golds were gone, and somehow you magically had terminal space for it.
Yeah, so, if the Fool's Golds are gone, I think you buy a Moat over nothing, because, you're only... What's competing for your terminal space? Maybe Catapult. Maybe.
If you have some Nobles already, the Moat gets less good.
Sure.
Also, if your opponent has junked you
with
the Ruins, the Moat gets less good. Mining Village can be a great buy, just as an option to blow it up for $2.
Yeah,
I found myself buying a decent amount of them.
I think I buy that over silver, in pretty much every circumstance.
Yeah, I think it's definitely better than silver always here.
Yeah, because it's not getting in the way of your Fool's Golds, and it's also optional money.
Yeah. So yeah, that's about all I got.
Yep. Same.
All right.
So like we said, this episode's going to be about trade.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a story about this card. This is from the Adventures expansion, and I guess we can read the text. Trade is a $5 event from Adventures. It says trash up to 2 cards from your hand. Gain a silver per card you trashed. Turns your junks into silvers. And this is my favorite event, and the reason why is because, Adventures was the first expansion that I was part of the playtesting team for, so I was fangirling super hard over a lot of things, and this was one of them. But it was the very last day for Donald to make any changes to cards. Like, the artwork was about to go... we were about to, send the directions to the artist for the artwork. So all the card names needed to be finalized, and they needed to be sent to Jay by, noon on a day or whatever. And so Donald posts, and he's like, so this needs to be done. We have a few hours left, and here's a few cards that I'm not entirely happy with the names for. Can anyone think of anything better? And one of them was this card called Farmer's Market. Trade used to be called Farmer's Market, and now there's a different thing called Farmer's Market.
Hey.
And it was this. And so I was like, well, I mean, Market says to me buy, and this doesn't have buy. This card says to me silver, and usually Trade says silver because like trader and trading post.
Yeah, sure.
So I suggested
Except-
like 5 or 6 different trading names.
Everything with the word trade in it involves silver, except horse traders.
Trade route.
And trade route. and go
Yeah, I mean, the strongest connection with silver I could think of
yeah.
was trade. And
Yeah,
so I
right.
suggested like 5 or 6 trading names, and I was like, all right, I guess you could just do trade. And I was proud of a lot of these names. And Donald's like, oh, trade. I like that. Let's go. And now the card's called trade.
Yay!
So I named this card.
Nice.
I named this, event. I named
so
it.
it's kind of like your kid who you're going to be naming.
Yeah.
You may already have a baby name.
Well, we do already have a baby name.
Trade Horton.
Trade Horton. I mean, that's definitely more of a middle name. I definitely wanted the middle name to be 1 syllable and the first name to be 2. So, Dort Trade Horton, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Dort Trade Horton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in any case, I also have a one little story I wanted to tell about this. So I had just named the card. I was super excited, and I was bragging to one of my friends, one of the people I climb with. I was like, "Oh my god, I just named the Dominion card," and she's like, "Oh, did you name it Kevin?" So for the longest time in my wallet, when I still had photos in my wallet, I printed off an image, a working image of that event, and then I just put Kevin as the title.
I have $5. I'm buying a Kevin.
I'm gonna Kevin these curses into silvers. And like
Kevin.
that happened for a long time. Just gonna say that. And then the last little bit of trivia is like this card used to allow you to trash any number of cards and gain a silver per card you trash. That was broken. That was ultra powerful. And like trade is still pretty good at the
now
way
that
it is now, yeah.
that last part, that being too powerful, is interesting and definitely relevant to trade and what it does.
Yeah, because silver is amazing. It is way better than curse.
Well,
it's way better than copper.
So, like, and there's a difference between, like, adding a silver to your deck and replacing something else in your deck with a silver.
That's
like,
a huge deal.
Those are two very different things, and they factor kind of into, I think, the first thing we need to lay the groundwork for if we're going to talk about trade, which is that there are
money density.
Yeah, well, and money density factors in, but there are 2 kinds of trashing in Dominion. Like,
yeah.
There are some players who see the word trashing and don't differentiate. Like, they don't understand that, like, not all trashing is deck control. And so there is thinning trashing, and then there's trashing that doesn't thin. And just for this purpose, I'm going to call it, like, deck improvement trashing.
Yeah, like, a lot of times, myself included, people will use those words interchangeably, trashing and thinning.
But they're not the same thing.
Well, I mean, depending on who's saying it, right? I mean, there are different things that trashing cards is able to do for you. In this case, you're required to gain another card, and so that effect all bundled together is something different than another effect that would just remove the cards from your deck.
Well, in my mind, these 2 categories are... The important distinction is that thinning decreases the number of cards in your deck that don't draw a card when you play them. So like
stop cards.
Yeah, you think about trading post, which is kind of doing something similar to trade. That takes 2 cards into your deck and turns them into 1 card. That's thinning.
Versus less cards than what you started with.
Right. Whereas you buy a trade, you remove 2 cards from your deck and you gain 2 cards. That's not thinning, but it is improvement.
And those are stop cards most of the time.
Yeah. Where let's take another example. Like we talk about remodel. Remodel could be either one. You turn an estate into a silver. You didn't thin the estate. You improved your deck, but you didn't thin the estate. Whereas if you play a remodel to turn that estate into a village or some other cantrip, then you did thin your deck. You didn't necessarily improve your turn because like the village doesn't create value by itself, but you did thin your deck by turning the estate into something that draws a card.
Sure. I mean, how good the card that you are required to gain is a very important part of this equation.
Yes.
It's really hard to make it so that when you draw a silver, you can draw more cards after that. And so if that's something that's very important to you, then, the silver's not great, barring the weird edge casey stuff like stables or whatever.
Sure.
But silver, that doesn't mean silver's a bad card. It just means that it's still a stop card. And
definitely.
You haven't decreased the number of stop cards in your deck. And in the case of trade here, that's definitely not something that's happening. You are not decreasing the number of stop cards in your deck.
Yeah, and if we want to give a very, miles up sort of distinction of what these things do for you, when we're looking at thinning, what it helps you do is shuffle your deck faster and see certain cards more often and combo them with other cards and control which cards you're seeing with which other cards. While deck improvement trashing, what that's helping you do is just have generally good turns more consistently.
Sure, and I think in this case, the fact that the card you're gaining
but it's not helping you see cards more often or combo them, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unless the card is silver, right?
Right.
if
silver
what you
combos
care about,
with silver. Yeah.
It does. I mean, that's a true fact, yo.
Yeah.
So, but, I mean, I think in most cases, those super combos that you're talking about are not silver.
Yeah.
It's like village plus smithy.
Yeah, if you want to combo a village and a smithy, trade doesn't help you do that. Trading post does.
Yeah.
But if you want to make sure you can always buy a smithy, trading post trade is good for that because you're never not going to hit 4 if you have a bunch of silver.
Right. It's more relevant if they cost 5. But I think the point is, trade doesn't decrease the number of stop cards in your deck.
Yeah.
And most of the time, that's a very important factor.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So there was also this thing that I sort of tried to jump to because, that was the first thing that popped into my mind.
Sure.
Was money density.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So, money density is this concept that makes sense mostly in big money style decks where you're trying to get one province per turn. The fact that density enters into the equation is more an artifact of I'm only going to be drawing X cards per turn. Mm-hmm. So that's not my entire deck. So the metric I'm using is the cards on my turn rather than the cards in my deck because I intend to draw them all.
Yeah.
So I think this assumption is, the money density assumption is I'm not going to draw my whole deck. I'm only going to draw some of my deck, or maybe none of it, or maybe just the 5 cards I start with.
Yeah.
That's when money density starts to be important. Mm-hmm. And trade is absolutely amazing at increasing your money density. I haven't thought about this, or I can't back this up, but it's probably the single best thing you can do for $5 in a buy that will help your money density.
Yeah, so we talked about when we went into the episode on farmland, you kind of advocated that a lot of the time, assuming that the farmland was going to be used as a quote-unquote silver to buy provinces, that the farmland was a better buy than gold, because if it removes a card from your deck while putting an effective silver into your deck, that's better for your money density than just buying a gold and adding a gold to it.
Yeah, and that negates the 4 cost that you get and how good that could be. Even if you were trashing it into nothing, it still improves your money density better than a gold would.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the difference between, in my high school Spanish class, between, an extra credit assignment that was just worth gravy points on top of your grade versus an extra credit assignment that was just, worth 10 out of 10 and my grade was out of 1,000, right? If I just get 10 free points in the class, that's amazing. That just straight up increases my grade by 1%.
Yes.
And, that's the difference between, a B plus and an A minus or whatever. Actually, I'm sorry, in my high school Spanish classes, that was the difference between below 100% and above 100% because I loved Spanish and I was a nerd.
Oh.
But anyway, just a 10 out of 10 doesn't have nearly the same effect. In fact, that effect is next to negligible.
Yeah.
And so there aren't 1,000 cards in your deck in Dominion, obviously. There's, maybe 15 or something. But it's still, that's a marked difference. That's a huge difference between just adding a silver to your deck or 2 silvers to your deck versus removing 2 cards that are worse than silver and then substituting them with silvers.
Yeah, it's a really good effect to be doing, yeah.
So, obviously, you want to be doing this to curses and estates. That's super amazing. The effect here is far better than gold. Trading 1 estate into a silver is better than gold. And that's, basically the same comparison as farmland, although now you can use the silver to buy things other than provinces.
Yeah, definitely. So that's an important point, is, we have kind of maybe softly implied that all you're doing with these silvers in the discussion up till now is to play big money and buy provinces, but like trade is good for so much more than that. Like if there are cards that cost 5 and 6, and you want to make sure that you are hitting 5 and 6 as much as possible, getting an early trade-off like pretty much guarantees you'll never not do that. What it doesn't do though is help you see those $5 and $6 cards more often. Like,
right.
It can't do everything, obviously, but like, so that's the aspect of trashing that it's not doing, which is making it so that you'll see that $5 card you put into your deck sooner. It just makes it so you can buy more of them.
Yeah, so I think for the fivers, the reason you would get a trade is I want to hit 5 a whole bunch.
Yeah.
So spammable fiver. If it's a $6 or a $7 card, that's something I want to spike up to, and maybe that card is going to help me thin my deck.
Yeah.
Right? If it's something that's very powerful that can help you do that, like I don't know, altar or something like that.
Yeah.
That's going to be. It's going to be. Well, that also helps you get a lot of fivers too. So.
And not to belabor the point here, but one interesting aspect of this when we talk about trade and wanting to do it to junk, you obviously do if you have like estates or curses or ruins or something in your deck that your opponent gave you. You would love to trade those into silver, but last episode, one of the concepts we explored with junking versus trashing is that if you trash cards, you see your junker more often, you get to play it more often and junk your opponent more. Whereas, like, that's only half true. With this improvement-oriented trashing, trade, if you're being junked, improves your deck quite a bit to counter the junk, but it doesn't counter it in terms of helping you play your junker more.
That's true. I do want to point out a dynamic that is half true, just like this thing you're saying. Sometimes the fact that trade is out there means that the junkers help you. Like, if someone's cursing me, the fact that I can trade those curses into silvers is a net improvement for my deck. I am now glad that they are junking me. If I have enough draw to just draw all the crap. Yes,
I would argue that's pretty rare, though, that you'd rather not be junked and be able to have trade and use it for other things. The idea that you are at a loss for cards in your deck other than the junk they could be giving you, I think is kind of rare, but it's definitely a possibility. Like, it's definitely out there.
I mean, your deck being improved by it is certainly rare. You're going to need a buttload of draw for that. However, it's certainly a lot of the time makes it not worth it to go for the junker. Because you're giving up enough to go for that junker.
Quite a bit.
I think that's a much more common case.
Yeah, so like, I might be glad my opponent's junking me if trade is out, and I can easily buy trade, if, like, they spent those resources on junking me instead of doing what would win them the game.
Like drawing cards to make effective trades happen.
If they're junking me instead of doing something that would actually help them win, and I can just trade away the junk, I'm A-okay with that situation.
Yeah. And that's a really good distinction to make. I'm glad you pointed that out, because I don't really think I said that well enough to have come across. See, this is why we have two co-hosts on this podcast.
Yeah.
Because when I suck at talking,
and
Jake can make it suck less.
When I suck at talking, Adam's here to just say the right thing instead of what I said. But
I mean, trade is really great, and I wanted to just point out an important distinction there that I said there, but I want to draw a little more attention to it.
Yeah,
you need to have more than 5 cards in your hand if you're going to make trade work.
That's really the most important point in my mind as well, is like the main enabler for trade is just increased hand size.
Yeah, and like normally when I say draw, I'm talking about, you have to make sure you don't decrease the number of actions you have, right?
Because there's a difference between increased hand size and increased effective hand size. Like if you play a smithy and draw 3 more smithies, you increased your hand size.
We did it,
but you didn't increase your effective hand size.
Sure. Having an action is great, right? I mean, if you're playing big money, it's not the most important thing. So the draw that needs village support, or terminal draws, a lot of people call it. So the smithy works great for trade, because you're putting silvers in your deck, and smithy loves drawing those, even if it doesn't have an action remaining. So I think that's the most important point about trade. It's just so hard to hit 5 and then have stuff that you want to trash.
Yeah, so like you basically like you usually only look at trade as something that's creating a lot of value if you're trashing both cards. Like, you could... A one-card trade is something you'll do sometimes.
It's good. Like,
it's
it stayed
fine.
into silver or curse into silver.
That's a good
That's
thing for
good.
your deck.
It's really good.
But, like, trade is really only something you're excited about when you get to trash 2. Which means that, remember, you have to have cards...
I'm excited with the... But most of the... Okay.
If you're easily excitable... No, but... yeah,
well,
so, like...
I like silver, okay? Sue me.
So, you either have to be able to increase your hand size, or... you have to be able to hit 5 with only 3 cards. Don't get me wrong, hitting 5 with only 3 cards, that's not super impressive for a mid-game deck, but, like, it's not something that you can do early.
Here I am, I'm like, silver's great, I love silver, and you're like, hitting 5 with 3 cards, that's not impressive, and I'm like, silver does that, woo!
Well, so, like, hitting 5 with 3 cards is something you'll be able to do by the middle of the game, but it's not something you can do early. And trade is something you're most excited about early. So, the best way that you can get a trade early, when you most want it, is to go for things that'll increase your hand size so that you can draw more cards and get that trade off.
Yeah. I mean, just the likelihood of having junks to trash along with your $5 hand without increasing hand size. I mean, it's not impossible, but, like... Yeah, you have to build towards it if you really want it to happen. And building towards it by opening with a smithy is much easier to do than building towards it by doing something that doesn't increase the number of cards in your hand.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, that's those are the main points that I have.
Yeah,
about
there's really only one more thing I wanted to do just to stick a bow on this. We've talked about trading post, and yes, they're very similar. Yeah, and I think, we talked about how, like, trading post thins the cards and trade gains you more silvers, obviously. But I think this is a vehicle to drive home one last point. Trade is an event.
Yes.
Okay? And events are really good. It's not a card you put in your deck that you then play, and then a shuffle after that you start to see the effects of the card. That's what trading post is. Trade has an effect immediately. You do a trade, and you shuffle your cards, and now your deck is significantly better already instead of waiting another shuffle.
Okay, yeah, that's actually a very important distinction.
And, that's true for pretty much every event in the game, right? But, trade is an event, and it has this effect, and, I mean, a lot of people, especially when Adventures first came out, were, underestimating events. I mean, I did throughout the entire playtesting process, but the fact that they have their effect immediately and don't require you to put a card in your deck that you have to draw and then play in order to have its effect. That's a huge power boost, and so, trade's a lot better than you may give it credit for that reason, and also because silver's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's, the other, I mean, obviously it being an event too doesn't mean, like, comparing it to trading post, like, if you terminal draw it, like, you don't have to worry about it taking up space in your deck to do the same thing that a trading post would do, so yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Being an event is a really big deal. Yeah. So, those are the main points I think we have about trade.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments if you can think of anything that you think we may have missed. Oh, Tomb. Anyway, there's a kingdom that we're going to be playing that has trade in it. Yeah, and we're going to be playing it over the next week and deciding what we think is best here. And beginning of next podcast, we're going to talk about how wrong we were about that. So
yeah, except for me, still haven't really been wrong on all that much. Just putting that out there.
Wait.
Yeah, I said Marauder was bad last time.
Yeah, did you say anything that was wrong? I feel like we both got corrected quite a bit.
I mean, the opening, I think going a little harder for Fool's Gold than what I suggested is probably good.
Yeah.
So I staked my claim on Marauder though.
Okay, but Fool's Gold's not in this kingdom. What is?
Oh, okay. We have Native Village, Catapult, Guide, Trade Route, Silk Road, Capital, Cobbler, Haunted Woods, Ill-Gotten Gains, Laboratory, and of course there's Trade. Once again, for our audio-only listeners, Native Village, Catapult, Guide, Trade Route, Silk Road, Capital, Cobbler, Haunted Woods, Ill-Gotten Gains, Laboratory, and Trade. What you thinking, Lincoln?
Okay, so I think trade is really important here.
Super great. I think it's the reason why you don't go for Iggs.
Yeah, I think ill-gotten gains would be good if trade route wasn't. If trade wasn't here.
Yeah.
Trade route. No, not trade route.
Trade route's not enough.
Yeah, no, trade is the reason that you set that deck up, definitely.
Trade route's just outclassed here by Catapult. Catapult gives you $1 and sometimes does a very relevant attack, and trade route just gives you a buy that you don't care about.
That's true. So, man, what kind of deck are you building here, and how do you open? I am thinking that big money is not crazy here.
It's not crazy.
Because, like, there is plus buy, and there are ways to increase your hand size and do more than big money, but, like, trade sets up big money really well with that money density we were talking about, and there's also terminal draw, and, man, like, Haunted Woods is pretty good for it, too.
Yeah, so, like, there's a couple ways you can go. The first way you can go, I think, is a money-based deck. That deck probably has some Haunted Woods in it, for sure. It performs a few trades, and it tries to buy provinces by having a lot of cards in hand. Capital's probably good for that deck. I imagine Guide is probably going to be good for the deck. I know Haunted Woods sort of serves as a counter to itself, but, like, Guide also defends pretty nicely against Haunted Woods.
Yeah,
so I'm probably going to want one of those, especially because I'll be having a decent amount of silvers.
I'm only going to be buying Guide if I see my opponent has bought some Haunted Woods. Because, like, I don't think that Guide over silver makes it unless you're being attacked.
I think I would get a Guide even without... I would get more Guides if I was being attacked, for sure.
Would I get a Guide without... Would I find time for a Guide if I wasn't being attacked by Haunted Woods?
I think I would do it.
Okay, if I was being... or Catapult. Obviously, either one of those encourages a Guide.
Okay, yes, any attack, for sure.
So, would I do that? I don't know. I'd think about it.
I'm pretty sure I would stick a Guide in the deck. I'm pretty sure. I'm not gonna die on that cross. But I think that's pretty good here.
Yeah.
The other direction I think you can go involves playing a lot more cards in a turn and aiming for a higher payload than one province per turn.
And that's not crazy either.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Big Money's crazy. I don't think this other deck is crazy either.
The components of that deck are so weak, though. Like, there's Native Village, which doesn't like to draw cards all that much.
Yeah.
And Haunted Woods is good draw, but, like, it's...
Needs plus action with Native Village.
Yeah.
Although Native Village is actually kind of decent at setting up a trade. Because, like...
It can, sure.
Yeah, it sets up a big hand.
I mean, I feel like Haunted Woods just does it better, but, like,
you'd have both.
5,
the same deck has both, because the only plus action here to play multiple Haunted Woods is the Native Village.
For sure.
So,
but, like, there's also Lab, which may just be better at all of that stuff.
Yeah. The really awkward part of setting up that kind of deck on this kind of board, when, like, the plus buy is, like, nominal. Like, it's plus buy, but it doesn't do anything else. I'm talking about trade route and kind of capital.
Yeah.
Is like, when am I picking it up? Because, like, I want to build more before I buy it so I can capitalize on it. But, like, I'm also... Like, once I've built more, I'm hitting, like, $6 and $7 price points, and it feels so bad to spend, like, $7 on a trade route or something like that.
Well, sure. I mean, that feels bad, but
sometimes you gotta do it. Or a ruined market.
We did it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure how I feel about Cobbler in that deck. Cobbler's probably fine.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
still not sure, though, because, like,
the
really...
Cobbler is actually probably something I would go for in that case.
I mean, the fact that you can get it with Silk Roads, it helps you catch up, and I feel like, getting some Iggs in that deck after trade deck has started grieving if you want to go super long. I mean, as the trade player, I'm not super intimidated by that.
It's interesting that you mentioned Silk Road. I looked at this board, and the first thing I said was, I don't think Silk Road's very good here. Like, I think Silk Road's pretty bad.
I mean, it's more points. It's not great, but
I don't think,
probably need it if you're going to go for that deck. I'm still not warm. The more I talk about it, the more I feel like I want to play something that aims for one province per turn.
Yeah.
That's where I'm leaning. I could be wrong about this. I'm not certain of it. I think it's kind of close.
I think setting up a streamlined, junk-free deck that has a bunch of silvers in it and that's a deck that can very easily get golds and then start getting 1 province per turn is super easy and fast here. Because
of trade.
Hand size increase and trade.
Yeah.
And I think that even though higher payload is technically possible, I think it's going to get outpaced. Once a player doing that gets 5 provinces, a player doing anything else is in a much shakier position. Because they can't get points without lowering piles that end the game. Yeah.
Sure. I think the magic number here is 6, but same idea.
Yeah.
And that's because there's more points out there and some attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, once I got 6 provinces with that deck, I'd feel pretty good.
I think Silk Road without any enablers is pretty weak.
Yeah, the best enabler is Cobbler, which is not super fantastic.
Yeah, and it gets countered pretty hard by Haunted Woods too.
Ooh, gross.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can't slog now that I think about it. Well,
So
I don't know. I mean, I've lost many games to Wandering Winder where I'm like, you can't slog with Silk Road here, and then, whew!
Yeah, so, I mean, let us know what you would do. Let us know what you think about Silk Road and whether you would try to play the traditional quote-unquote big money, or you would just try to buy a province per turn as quickly as possible, or you would try to do more than that, capitalizing on the plus buy here. So, yeah. Oh,
I don't know of a cross I'm willing to die on for this kingdom.
Yeah, would anyone go for Ig? I think that Ill-Gotten Gains, I'm trying to think of a situation where you would buy an Ill-Gotten Gains, and
it seems dicey. If I was behind and needed points and to slow my opponent down, probably would do it, but it feels so bad.
I don't
think it's
think about it in the not near the end game when we're trying to score, but in the mid game, if my opponent is not super thin, I would consider it. But man, am I buying that over a lab or a haunted? No, I'm not.
It's hard.
Or a cobbler, depending on what kind of deck I'm building. No, I'm gonna say you never buy an Ill-Gotten Gains here.
I don't like it. I don't think. Yeah. I think it's ignorable.
So. TM. So,
yeah. I think that's all I have to say about the kingdom, right?
I think we're mostly in agreement here on this kingdom, too.
Cool.
So, let us know in the comments if you think we're way off base, but...
For sure.
Other than that...
Next week, we're going to have another episode at the normal time. It's not going to be early like this one. Hit us up on the Discord. Go to adamhorton.com. Blogs and forums are there. We got a lot of good feedback this week. Hopefully that can continue. And,
definitely.
Yeah, we look forward to doing this again. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks.
Smell you later.
Later, guys. So dating sims have been a thing for a long time, and those have never been my preferred genre, except for the ones that are self-aware and commenting on the dating sim genre.
Okay.
How to Full Boyfriend, Doki Doki Literature Club. Those are amazing.
How to Full Boyfriend?
How to Full Boyfriend is a dating sim, and it's just a straight-up deadpan dating sim, except all the people you're dating are just birds. It makes you're a human. It makes no explanation whatsoever. They're just birds. It's...
Lexi would like this dating sim.
Yeah.
Because did you know that Lexi has a confirmed kill?
Oh.
Of a bird?
Nice.
I mean, her breed was meant to, bring dead birds back to you, but she actually got one. When they go, they're bred to, go into bushes and then flail around so they scare the birds. So that you can shoot them, and then when the birds come down, they bring them back to you. And they have the soft bite so they don't, impale the bird with their teeth or something when they're bringing it back. Okay. But I guess if they can catch one, sure, they caught a bird. Good for them. So I guess that's probably in their genetic makeup.
Good job, Lexi.
I was the only person who saw her kill this bird, and it was a total fluke. I don't know how the bird didn't notice she was coming up on it, because she was not stealthy about it at all.
It's a really dumb bird.
But then when the bird noticed, it got startled, and it ran into a fence. It just flew into the fence. And it was still kind of airborne, but it was not going in any good direction. And so Doggo just kind of reached up and flailed and hit the bird again. And then the bird got down on the ground, and then she went over to the bird, and I think the bird was already,
pretty much dead.
I mean, it wasn't dead at that point, but like
but
she brought it over to me very gently, set it down. I praised her because what else are you gonna do, right?
Right. I mean, good job.
And then I took her inside, so she didn't eat it.
I didn't even know I wanted this.
I took her inside, so she didn't eat it. She stared at it through the glass door for like the next 4 hours, and then
to make sure it was dead.
Well, yeah. I mean, it eventually died there, and I mean, I told my wife about it, and actually, her parents were visiting at the moment. I was the only one that saw it. I was like, "Look at this dead bird. Lexi killed it," and they were like, "I don't believe you."
That's amazing. We believe you, Lexi.
Well, I mean, I do, and now you're the second person in the universe that believes her.
Which actually brings us to the raffle.
Welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast.
Yeah, so if you were listening to any of that, then you